All right, so we're diving into The Courage to be Disliked today.
Okay.
And it's this book that really unpacks Adlerian's psychology
Right.
in kind of a cool way.
Yeah.
It's actually structured as like a conversation
Mm-hmm.
between this philosopher and a youth.
Yeah. And that's what makes it so engaging, I think.
Right.
For the reader, because
Yeah.
you feel like you're part of this
Yeah.
dialogue and almost like wrestling with these questions too, alongside the youth.
Now, some people might be thinking philosophy,
sure.
psychology sounds kind of heavy.
Right. It's very approachable,
Oh,
though.
it's so approachable, and it's packed with
Yeah.
like really practical wisdom.
Yeah.
And it's not just theory, it's really about stuff you can apply to your everyday life.
It is.
Like relationships and happiness and even work.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that struck me was how it flips the script on how we view the past.
Okay.
Adlerian psychology kind of rejects this idea that we're chained to our past experiences,
Okay.
even traumas.
They use that example in the book
Yeah.
about the guy who becomes like a recluse.
Right.
And you would think, oh, he must have had some trauma.
You would assume so.
But they're saying, no, he's actually choosing to be isolated
Right.
based on what he's trying to achieve now.
Right.
Even if that goal is to like avoid the world.
It's a powerful shift in thinking.
It is a powerful shift.
Yeah. Instead of getting stuck in the why
Right.
of
yeah.
what happened, Adlerian psychology
Yeah.
really focuses on the what now.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
What are your current goals?
Yeah, exactly.
And how are your choices moving you towards them?
Mhm.
I mean, that is empowering
It is very empowering.
because it suggests that we have that capacity to change.
Absolutely.
So the book makes this kind of bold claim.
Yeah.
All problems are interpersonal relationship problems. Now, isn't that a little extreme? What about like anxiety or depression?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And the book actually addresses that.
Okay.
It argues that even feelings that seem purely personal, like anxiety or feelings of inferiority,
Right.
are often tied to how we see ourselves
Okay.
in relation to others.
They gave that example of the person who felt inadequate because they didn't go to like a fancy university.
Exactly. That feeling of inadequacy
Yeah.
only exists because of the comparison.
Right.
It highlights how much our sense of self
Yeah.
is shaped by our relationships and our interactions.
Okay.
But here's the empowering twist.
Okay.
You hold a lot of the cards
Okay.
in those relationships.
Interesting.
You can change how you interact,
Right.
how much you let others' opinions affect you,
Mhm.
and whether you see the people around you as comrades or
Right.
competitors.
That's a powerful reframe.
It is.
Okay, so if we're always in some way relating to others, this idea of the courage to be disliked
Right.
becomes even more important.
It does.
Yeah.
Like,
What struck me about the book was it really encourages us to break free
Yeah.
from this constant need for approval.
mm-hmm.
Like, how often do you change your behavior
Right.
to please maybe your partner, your boss?
Your parents.
Your parents, all of
Right,
it.
your friends.
Yeah, and the book argues that seeking constant approval
Yeah.
from others really keeps us chained to other
Wow.
people's expectations.
Wow.
It's almost like we're living someone else's life instead of our own.
It's true.
Yeah.
So then the courage to be disliked
The courage to be disliked.
is really about having the courage
Yeah.
to be authentically you,
Mm-hmm.
even if it means some people aren't going to like it.
Right. And that can be hard.
Oh, that is hard.
But it's so freeing. Yeah, it is. When you think about it, like,
Yeah.
how do we actually cultivate that courage?
Well, the book has some really practical advice.
Okay.
And one of the first things it addresses is this very common human experience
Yeah.
of feeling inferior.
Okay, we've all felt inadequate sometimes.
Absolutely. And the book doesn't say those feelings are bad.
Okay.
In fact, they can be powerful motivators for
Yeah.
growth.
Okay.
It's like that feeling of, oh, I'm not as skilled as that person,
Mm-hmm.
can push us to learn and to improve.
So is there a difference between feeling inferior and having like an inferiority complex?
There is. An inferiority complex is when those feelings
Yeah.
become an excuse for inaction.
Got it.
Like the book gives this example, someone saying, oh, I can't succeed
Yeah.
because I didn't go to a top university.
Right.
And they're letting that perceived inferiority
Right.
hold them back.
Okay, so how do we break free of that trap?
The book suggests a simple solution, which is
Yeah.
stop comparing yourself to others.
Wow.
The only comparison that matters
Okay.
is with your own ideal self.
So it's not about being better than anyone else.
No.
It's about
It's about becoming the best you can be.
Right. And that requires a shift in perspective.
It does.
Often.
It means letting go
Right.
of the need to prove yourself
Yeah.
and focusing on your own growth and development.
So this also ties in beautifully with another key concept from the book, which is the idea that life isn't a competition.
Exactly.
But wait, isn't there always someone out there who's smarter?
Of course.
Or richer or more successful?
Yes, but
Yeah.
if we buy into that idea
Okay.
that life is a competition,
Yeah.
we will always feel like we're falling short.
That's true.
So the book challenges us
Right.
to shift our perspective
Mm-hmm.
from competition
Yeah.
to cooperation.
Okay.
It suggests that we see other people
Right.
as comrades,
Oh.
fellow travelers
Yeah.
on this journey of life.
Okay, so instead of feeling threatened by other people's accomplishments,
Exactly.
we could actually celebrate them.
Yes.
Wow.
It's about recognizing that we're all in this together
Okay.
and that we can achieve more when we work together
Right.
than when we're constantly trying to outdo each other.
So this idea of community, feeling
Yes.
of belonging.
It's central to
Yeah.
Adlerian psychology.
Now, you mentioned earlier separation of tasks.
Yeah.
Can you explain what that means?
Absolutely.
Because I think that's really important
Yeah.
for understanding how to build healthier relationships.
It
with
is.
it.
It is.
Yeah.
So separation of tasks
Okay.
is this really powerful idea
Okay.
that helps us set healthy boundaries.
Okay.
And it basically means recognizing
Yeah.
that we are only responsible for our own actions, not for the actions or reactions of others.
So if someone's in a bad mood,
Right.
it's not my job to fix it.
It's their task
Okay.
to manage their emotions,
Got it.
just like it's your task
Mm-hmm.
to manage yours.
So this doesn't mean we shouldn't offer support or care for other people.
Exactly.
It's just about recognizing that we can't control other people's choices
Their feelings.
or feelings.
Right.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But how does that apply to something like parenting?
Yeah.
Because I can imagine it's really hard
It can be tough. Yeah.
to separate tasks when it comes to your children.
Right. But the book gives an example of
Oh.
a child who's refusing to study.
Right.
And it argues that it's not the parent's task
Okay.
to force them to study.
Right.
It's the child's task
Yeah.
to choose whether or not to study and then face the consequences
Okay.
of that choice.
So the parent's task
A parent's task
is more about providing support
is to provide support and guidance.
and in guidance, but ultimately
Right.
the child is responsible
Ultimately, the child is responsible
for their own actions.
for their own actions. Exactly.
It seems like separation of tasks
Yeah,
is really the key
it can be.
to avoiding so much conflict and resentment in relationships.
Absolutely.
Instead of trying to control each other,
Yeah,
we're focusing on what we can control
exactly. Yeah.
ourselves.
Right. Yeah.
So then we're relating to each other
Right.
as equals.
As equals, yes.
And this ties back to that concept of community feeling.
Yeah.
When we let go of the need to control or fix other people,
Right.
we can connect with them on this deeper, more genuine level.
Absolutely.
We can actually see them as comrades,
As comrades.
not as projects.
Not as projects. I'm starting to see how all of these pieces
Yes,
fit together.
they do.
The courage to be disliked,
Right.
the importance of community feeling, the power of separating tasks.
Yeah. It's like
A whole new
a
framework
whole new framework.
for how we live and relate to others.
Right.
And speaking of a new framework,
Yeah.
one of the things I found most mind-shifting
Yeah.
was its approach to happiness.
Okay.
It really challenges this idea
Okay.
that happiness is something we achieve in the future.
Okay.
Like, I'll be happy when I get that promotion.
Right. Or when I find the perfect partner, or when I buy that house, or whatever.
Or when I have kids.
Right.
Instead, it argues that happiness
Mm-hmm.
is a choice we can make right now.
Okay.
So,
I mean, we're so conditioned to think that happiness is about,
yeah,
getting what we want,
right, about achieving our goals.
achieving our goals, having it all.
Having it all, yeah, and that
Yeah.
sets us up for this constant state
Right.
of dissatisfaction.
Because there's always going to be something else
Because there is.
to achieve
Yeah.
or something more to acquire. But what if
Yeah,
true happiness isn't about having it all,
right.
but about appreciating what we have right now?
What if it is about that? Yeah.
No, I mean, isn't that oversimplifying things a bit? I mean, life is hard.
You're right.
There is pain. There's frustration.
Absolutely.
There are challenges.
Yes, life is full of ups and downs.
So you can't just choose
Right.
to be happy and ignore all of that.
The book doesn't suggest that we pretend everything is perfect.
Right.
It acknowledges
Yeah.
that life is full of those ups and downs.
Okay.
But it uses this great analogy of a spotlight.
Okay.
It's like we have a limited amount of attention,
Right.
and we can choose where to direct it.
Oh, okay.
We can choose to focus on the negative,
Yeah.
or we can choose to focus on the positive.
So it's not about denying the negative.
Yeah.
It's just about choosing where we're placing our attention.
Exactly.
Okay, but how does that tie into
Right.
the courage to be disliked?
Think about it.
Yeah.
When you choose to focus on the positive,
Right.
to find joy in the present moment, even when things are tough,
Yeah.
you're essentially saying,
Right.
I'm not going to let
Yeah.
external circumstances dictate my happiness.
Wow.
And that
Wow.
can take courage,
It does.
especially when you're surrounded by people
Right.
who are maybe focused on the negativity.
Yeah, or the drama or whatever.
Exactly.
So
It's like you're breaking free
it
from
is
this
very-
need to have everyone agree with you,
exactly
to validate your experience.
Mhm.
You're choosing happiness on your terms.
on your terms.
I love that.
Yeah.
But how do we actually
Uh.
make that choice?
So the book provides some really practical advice
Yeah.
on how to actually
Yeah.
make that choice.
I mean, yeah.
And one of the key things it emphasizes is
Yeah.
focusing on our own tasks.
Right. We talked about the separation of tasks.
Exactly.
So I'm responsible
Yeah.
for my own actions,
Yeah.
my own choices,
Yeah.
but not for trying to control.
Right. Or change others.
Exactly.
So how does that apply to finding happiness?
Well, it frees us
Yeah.
from this burden
Yeah.
of trying to manage
Right.
other people's emotions
Mhm.
or make them happy.
Okay.
So
So if my partner's having a bad day,
exactly.
it's not my job to try and fix it.
It's their task
Okay.
to manage their own emotions.
Right.
Your task is to offer support
Hmm.
and understanding,
But not to take responsibility.
but not to take responsibility
Because feelings.
for the feelings. Exactly.
And the same goes for
The same goes for your boss,
It's like,
or
"Boss,
friends.
your family,
Yeah.
my family, everybody.
Yeah,
This seems so liberating.
it is.
Not just in our relationships, but in all areas of life.
It is.
Because when we stop trying to control everything
Right.
and everyone around us,
Hmm.
we can start to appreciate
Exactly.
the present moment
Yes.
more fully.
You can just
Right.
more present
So focusing on our own tasks
is one way
it's one way. Yeah.
to cultivate this present moment happiness.
Exactly.
what about-
else does the book suggest?
Yeah.
Well, it also encourages us
Okay.
to let go of this constant need
Yeah.
for recognition.
Okay.
I mean, we are so conditioned
We are.
to seek approval
Yeah.
from other people.
It's true.
Our parents, our partners, our friends.
Yeah. Even strangers on social media.
Even strangers on social media. It's
Yeah.
like we're looking for validation outside of ourselves
Yes.
instead of finding it within.
It's so true.
And the book argues
Yeah.
that this constant need for approval
Oh.
keeps us trapped.
Gosh.
It prevents us
Yeah.
from being truly authentic.
Okay. So how do we break free from that?
Well, it's tied to this idea
That's
of
courage to be disliked.
the courage to be disliked when
Yeah.
you let go of
Yeah.
this need for
Mhm.
everyone to like you, to
Yeah.
approve of everything you
Yeah.
do.
You're free to make choices that
Yeah.
align with your values,
Okay.
not someone else's.
And that can be so empowering.
It can be,
That's scary at first.
but it can feel scary at first.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
can. But then that brings up another question.
Yeah.
How do we build a sense of community
That's a great question.
if we're not trying to please everyone?
Right. And the book talks about the importance
Okay.
of building
Yeah.
what it calls horizontal relationships.
Okay, what does that mean?
So horizontal relationships
Yeah.
mean relating to others
Mhm.
as equals,
Ha.
regardless of their roles or titles.
So instead of seeing relationships as
Okay.
these hierarchies
Yeah.
where someone's always in charge.
Right. Or has more power.
Yeah, it's more about
It's more about collaboration
collaboration and
Yeah.
shared responsibility.
and shared responsibility. Yeah.
I like that.
And the book argues
Yeah.
these horizontal relationships
Mhm.
are essential for creating a true sense of community.
Okay.
It's about seeing each other
Yeah.
as comrades,
Right.
not as competitors or
Mm.
people we need to impress.
And that environment allows
Yes.
for more vulnerability.
Yes.
More authenticity.
More authenticity.
I like that.
Yeah, and it fosters a sense of belonging,
Yeah.
which is so essential
Right.
for well-being.
Now, this idea of community feeling
Yes,
also ties into the book's perspective on work.
it does.
So let's talk about that.
Okay.
A lot of people see work as just a means to an end,
Right.
a way to pay the bills,
Yeah.
and hopefully achieve some level of success.
Exactly.
But how does this book approach work differently?
So it shifts the focus
Okay.
from achieving external validation,
Okay.
like money or status,
Right.
to finding meaning and purpose
Oh.
in our work.
So it's not just about the paycheck.
Well, while earning a living is important,
Right.
the book suggests that true fulfillment
Oh.
comes from feeling like you're making a positive impact.
Okay.
It's about using your skills and talents
Right.
to create something of value,
Yeah.
to contribute to something
Hmm.
larger than yourself.
That's a powerful way to look at work.
Yeah.
And I bet it makes going to work
Yeah.
each day
Right.
a lot more meaningful.
More meaningful. Exactly.
But what about people who get caught in the trap of workaholism?
The book actually addresses that too.
Okay.
It argues
Yes.
that workaholism is often a way
Okay.
to avoid
Yeah.
other important aspects of life, like
Right.
relationships
Yeah.
or personal growth.
It's like we get so caught up
It's like we
in achieving and proving ourselves
Yeah.
that we lose sight
that we lose sight
of what really matters.
of what really matters.
Okay, so
Not data.
the book encourages us to find a healthy balance,
It does.
to prioritize our relationships,
Yeah.
make time for ourselves,
Right.
and engage in activities
Yeah.
that bring us joy
that bring us joy.
outside of work.
Exactly.
So I'm seeing this pattern here.
Yes.
Whether it's relationships, happiness, or work,
Mm-hmm.
this book keeps coming back
It does.
to the idea of finding meaning and purpose
Echo.
in the present moment,
Yes.
not in some future achievement.
And that leads us to
Okay.
one of the most profound
Okay.
and maybe even challenging ideas
Okay.
in the book.
Aye.
This concept that life
Huh.
is a series of moments,
Okay.
not a line.
Now I admit that one
Yeah.
took a while to wrap my head around.
It's a tough one
It is.
to grasp.
Yeah.
It challenges this linear
Yeah.
way of thinking about life,
Right.
where we're always striving to get to the next milestone.
Finish school, get the job,
Finish school, get the job, get married,
get married, retire.
retire.
Right.
Instead,
Mhm.
it suggests that life
Okay.
is a collection of individual moments.
Right.
And the only moment we can truly experience
Yeah.
is the present moment.
Okay. So it's not about denying the past
What?
or ignoring the future.
It's about
Believing
recognizing
that the only moment we have control over
Right.
is right now.
How does that change how we live?
It invites us
Okay.
to be more present,
Yeah.
more mindful of
Mhm.
our experiences,
So instead of worrying
instead of constantly
worrying
these-
about what's next
or dwelling on the past.
or dwelling on what's already happened,
Yeah.
we can savor each moment,
Okay.
appreciate the beauty around us,
Yeah.
and connect more deeply
Right.
with the people we love.
Now that sounds lovely,
It does.
but also pretty difficult
it takes practice.
Here's to do consistently.
Hey.
We're so programmed
We are.
to be goal-oriented,
Right.
to always be planning for the future.
But the book argues that
Right.
it's a practice worth
Yeah.
cultivating
Uh-huh.
because it leads to a much richer,
Right.
more fulfilling life.
It uses that analogy of the dance,
Yes.
right? A dancer doesn't just focus
Right.
on the end of the routine.
Exactly.
They enjoy every step.
They savor each step.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's such a beautiful way
It
to
is.
think about life.
it is.
And this ties back to that earlier idea of
Yeah.
finding meaning in these seemingly meaningless moments.
In those seemingly meaningless moments,
What if we could choose
what if we could choose?
to give meaning to every interaction,
Yeah.
to every experience, no matter how small?
I love that idea.
Yeah,
That's where true happiness resides.
that's where it is.
Not in some distant future,
Right.
but in the richness
right here, right now.
of the present moment.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
Happiness, relationships, work, purpose.
Yeah.
But this all hinges on this core idea
Yeah.
of the courage to be disliked.
Right.
So what are some practical ways
We
that-
can start cultivating that courage.
The book offers some really concrete advice
Okay.
that I found surprisingly helpful.
We're all ears.
One of the simplest
Right.
but most powerful suggestions
Okay.
is to start practicing
Yeah.
what the book calls
Okay.
the separation of tasks
Okay.
in your daily life.
Okay. So remind us.
So remember, it's about focusing on
Right.
what you can control,
Right.
your own actions and choices,
Yeah.
and letting go
Yeah.
of the need to control others.
So how would that look in practice?
Okay, so
Can you give me an example?
let's say you have a friend
Okay.
who's going through a tough time.
Right.
It's natural to want to help them,
Yes.
to offer advice,
Right.
to try to fix their problems.
Yeah.
But the book suggests
Yeah.
that it's often more helpful
Mm-hmm.
to simply listen
Okay.
and offer support
Right.
without taking on their burdens as your own. So instead of saying, you should do this, or have you tried that?
Right.
I could just say, I'm here for you. How
That-
can I support you?
Exactly. It's a subtle shift,
Okay.
but it makes a big difference.
Right.
Because you're acknowledging their autonomy,
Mm.
their ability to make their own choices
Yeah.
and find their own solutions.
Right.
And in doing so,
Yeah.
you're also freeing yourself
Okay.
from the pressure
Right.
of feeling responsible
Yeah.
for their happiness.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I can see how that would help me cultivate the
Right.
courage to be disliked.
Yeah.
Because I'm not trying to please everyone
Yeah.
or fix their problems.
Right.
I'm just being present
You're just being present
and offering support.
and offering support.
Another practical tip the book offers
Mm-hmm.
is to practice expressing your feelings
Mhm.
and needs honestly and directly
Honestly and directly.
without blaming
Remember-
or manipulating others.
Yeah. That sounds simple enough.
Right.
But I
It
know
can be really hard.
it can be really hard to do,
Yeah, especially when you're worried about
especially when you're worried about
Well,
how the other person's going to react.
how the other person's going to react exactly.
Yeah.
But the book argues that it's a crucial part
Okay.
of building healthy relationships and
Mhm.
setting clear boundaries.
So they give the example of
Yeah.
the couple arguing about chores.
Yes.
Instead of saying, you never help out around the house, which just puts the other person on the defensive.
Exactly.
Right.
You could say, I'm feeling overwhelmed with the housework. Would you be willing to help me with the dishes tonight?
I love that.
Right?
It's such a
It's so much better.
more constructive way to communicate,
Yes.
and it's more likely to lead to
Yeah.
a positive outcome.
And it ties back to that concept
is-
of horizontal relationships,
Exactly.
where we're seeing each other as equals.
As equals, yeah.
Because you're not trying to control the other person
You're not trying to control them
or force them to
or
change.
force them to change.
You're just expressing your needs
You're simply expressing your needs
and asking for their cooperation.
and asking for their cooperation.
And the book argues
yeah.
that this kind of open and honest communication
Yes.
is essential for building trust
It is.
and intimacy in any relationship.
Absolutely.
Okay, so practicing separation of tasks,
Yeah.
communicating honestly and directly,
Mm-hmm.
those are two really tangible things we can
Yes.
start doing today
You can start doing today.
to cultivate
Exactly.
the courage to be disliked.
The courage to be disliked.
Yeah.
Any other advice from the book?
You know, one
What about
thing
that to you?
that really resonated with me
Okay.
was the importance of finding ways to contribute to something
Yeah.
larger than yourself.
So it's not just about focusing on our own happiness.
Yes.
Right? It's also about finding ways
Yeah, it's about finding ways
to make a positive impact
to make a positive impact
on the world around us.
on the world around us.
Okay. And that doesn't mean we
Okay.
all have to start charities
No, it doesn't mean
or become social activists.
oh, we don't have to do that.
It could be something as simple as
It could be
volunteering in our community
volunteering,
or helping a friend in need
helping a friend,
or even just doing our job
or just doing your job
with a sense of purpose
with a sense of purpose
and excellence.
and excellence. Exactly.
Yeah. Because even those small acts of kindness or service
Yeah,
can ripple outwards
they do.
and create positive change.
Absolutely.
And when we focus on contributing,
Yes.
it shifts our attention
It shifts our attention
away from our own ego
from our own
and
ego
our own perceived shortcomings.
and our own perceived shortcomings. Exactly. And it connects us.
It's like we're tapping into,
This collective energy,
yes,
this sense of shared humans
the shared humanity.
that helps us feel
Yeah.
more connected and purposeful.
More connected, more purposeful.
That sense of connection.
And that sense of
And
connection
is ultimately,
is ultimately
what helps us overcome
fear of being disliked.
the fear of being disliked.
Because when we realize
Because
they're
it's
all in this together,
right.
we're all part of something bigger.
We're all part of something bigger
For
than
ourselves,
ourselves.
it becomes less important,
Yeah.
whether everyone approves of us or not.
It becomes less important.
Wow, that's really powerful.
It is.
So it's not just about
Yeah.
individual courage
Yeah.
or resilience.
Mm-hmm.
It's about cultivating this sense of belonging.
It's about
Right.
shared purpose.
Cultivating that sense of belonging
Yeah.
and shared purpose.
That allows us to show up authentically.
Exactly.
Even when it's hard.
Even when it's hard.
Yeah.
And that, I think,
Yeah.
is the true essence
Okay.
of the courage to be disliked.
Okay.
It's not about
Yeah.
becoming indifferent to
Yeah.
other people's opinions.
Okay.
It's about finding that
Yeah.
inner strength
Mhm.
and conviction
Right.
to live in alignment
Pro-
with your own values,
Yeah.
even when it means going against the grain.
This has been such a thought-provoking deep dive.
It has.
The courage to be disliked
Yeah.
really challenges us to
Yeah.
rethink some of our most fundamental beliefs
Fundamental beliefs.
about happiness,
On it.
relationships, work,
Yeah.
even what it means
Yeah.
to live a good life.
What it means to live a good life.
And I think the biggest takeaway for me
Yeah.
is that we all have the power,
We do. We have the
And
power to
a
choose
different way of being.
a different way of being.
We can choose to let go
Yeah,
this need for approval,
let go of that need for approval.
to embrace our imperfections,
Embrace our imperfections.
to focus on what we can control,
Focus on what we can control.
and to find meaning and purpose
And find that meaning and purpose
in the present moment.
in the present moment.
And it's not an easy path,
It's not an easy path.
but it's definitely a path worth exploring.
It is a path worth exploring.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to encourage you, the listener,
Yes.
to consider
What is one small step
what is one small step
you can take today
you can take today
to start living with more courage?
to start living
With more courage.
and more joy.
more authenticity and more joy.
It could be practicing separation of tasks.
It could be.
It's a challenging relationship.
Practicing that separation of tasks.
It could be expressing your needs
Expressing your needs.
or directly
Or simply taking a few moments
or just taking a few moments
to appreciate the beauty
at the present moment.
of the present moment.
Remember, you have the power to choose.
You do.
And even the smallest choices can create ripple effects.
Even the smallest choices can
create ripple effects
and the lives of those around you.
that transform your life and the lives of those around you.
Thank you so much
Thank you.
joining us on this deep dive.
On this deep dive.
We hope it's inspired you
I hope so.
to embrace the courage to be yourself,
Yes.
to live a life true to your values,
To live a life true to your values.
and to find the joy that comes from connecting
you find that
and-
joy that comes from connecting with others
in a meaningful way.
in a meaningful way.
Until next time,
Yes.
keep diving deep.
Keep diving deep without taking on their burdens as your own.
Oh, so instead of saying, you should do this, or have you tried that,
Right.
I could just say, I'm here for you. How can I support you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a subtle shift, but it makes a big difference.
Because you're acknowledging their autonomy, their ability to make their own choices
Right.
and find their own solutions.
And in doing so, you're freeing yourself
And in doing so,
from the pressure
you're also freeing yourself
of feeling responsible for their happiness.
from that pressure of feeling responsible for their happiness.
Yes.
Yeah,
That makes a lot of sense.
it does.
And I can see how that would help me cultivate
Right.
the courage to be disliked.
Yeah.
Because I'm not trying to please everyone
Exactly.
or fix their problems.
Right.
I'm simply being present
You just being present
and offering support.
and offering support.
Another practical tip the book offers
Yes.
is to practice expressing your feelings and needs
Right.
honestly and directly
Honestly and directly.
without blaming or manipulating others.
Right.
Which sounds simple enough,
It does.
but I know it can be really hard.
But it can be hard to do,
Especially when you're worried about how the other person is going to react.
especially when you're worried about how the other person's going to react.
Right.
But the book argues
Okay.
that it's a crucial part of building healthy relationships and setting clear boundaries.
And it gives that example
Right.
of the couple arguing about chores instead of saying, you never help out around the house,
Right.
which puts the other person on the defensive.
Exactly.
You could say, I'm feeling overwhelmed with the housework. Would you be willing to help me with the dishes tonight?
I love that.
Right.
It's such a
It's a much better way
more constructive way to communicate.
to communicate.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's more likely
Right.
to lead to a positive outcome.
And it ties back
It
to
does.
that concept of horizontal relationships
Exactly.
where we're seeing each other as equals
As equals.
because you're not trying to control the other person
You're not trying to control them
or force them to change.
or force them to change.
We're
Yes.
simply expressing your needs
You're simply expressing your needs
and asking for their cooperation.
and asking for their cooperation. Exactly.
And the book argues that this kind of open and honest communication
Yeah.
is really essential for building trust
It
and
is.
intimacy in any relationship.
Absolutely.
Okay, so practicing separation of tasks,
Yeah.
communicating honestly and directly.
Hmm.
Those are two really tangible things we can start doing today
Those are two things you can start doing today
to cultivate the courage to be disliked.
To cultivate that courage to be disliked.
Any other advice from the book
You know, one thing that really resonated with me
that really stood out too?
was the importance of finding ways to contribute
Okay.
to something larger than yourself.
So it's not just about focusing on our own happiness.
Right.
It's about making a positive impact on the world around us.
It's about finding ways to make a positive impact on the world around us.
Okay. And that doesn't mean we all have to start charities
Right? It doesn't mean we all have to go and do that.
or become social activists.
Yeah.
It could be something as simple as
It could be as simple as
volunteering in our community
volunteering,
or helping a friend in need
helping a friend,
or even just doing our jobs
or just doing your job
with a sense of purpose and excellence.
with that sense of purpose and excellence.
Right. And even those small acts of kindness,
Right.
they can ripple outwards and create change.
They can create positive change.
And when we focus on contributing,
Yes.
it shifts our attention away from our own ego
It shifts our attention away from our own ego
and our perceived shortcomings.
and our perceived shortcoming.
And it connects us to something bigger.
It does.
It's like we're tapping into this collective energy.
Like we are
Pure humanity.
that sense of shared humanity.
And that helps us feel more connected,
Yeah.
more purposeful.
More connected, more purposeful.
And that sense of connection, ultimately,
And that sense of
is what helps us overcome that fear of being disliked.
is what helps us overcome that fear of being disliked.
Because when we realize that we're all in this together,
Because
we're all part of something bigger than ourselves.
we're all a part of something bigger than ourselves.
It becomes less important,
It does.
whether everyone approves of us or not.
It becomes less important.
That's really powerful.
It is.
So it's not just about individual courage or
Uh-huh.
resilience. It's about cultivating that sense of belonging and shared purpose.
It is about cultivating that sense of belonging and that shared purpose.
That lets us show up authentically,
Exactly.
even when it's hard.
Even when it's hard.
And that, I think,
Exactly.
is the true essence of the courage to be disliked.
Is the true essence of the courage to be disliked.
It's not about being indifferent
It's not about being indifferent
to other people's opinions.
to those opinions.
It's about finding that inner strength,
Right. It's about conviction.
finding that inner strength and conviction.
To live in alignment with your own values. To live in alignment with your values.
Even when it means going against the grain.
Even when it means going against the grain.
Well, this has been such a thought-provoking deep dive.
It has been.
The courage to be disliked
It really has.
really challenges us to rethink
It does.
our most fundamental beliefs
Yeah. Our most fundamental belief
about happiness, relationships, work,
about happiness, relationships, and work.
what it means to live a good life.
And what it means to live a good life.
And the biggest takeaway for me
Yeah. What's the biggest takeaway for you?
is that we all have that power
I think we do.
to choose a different way of being.
We have the power to choose a different way of being.
We can choose to let go of that need for approval.
We can let go of that need for approval.
We embrace our imperfection.
Embrace our imperfections.
Focus on what we can control.
Focus on what we can control.
And find meaning and purpose in the present moment.
And find that meaning and purpose in the present moment.
It's not an easy path,
It's not an easy path,
but it's a path worth exploring.
but it is a path worth exploring.
So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yes.
I want to encourage you, the listener, to consider
I want to encourage you too.
what is one small step you can take today
What is one small step?
to start living with more courage, more authenticity, more joy.
Start living with more courage, authenticity, and joy.
Maybe it's practicing the separation of tasks
It could be
in a relationship.
practicing that separation of tasks,
It could be expressing your needs more directly.
expressing those needs.
Or maybe just taking a few moments to appreciate the beauty around you.
Yeah.
Remember, you have the power to choose.
You do have the power to choose.
And even the smallest choices can create those ripple effects
Even those smallest choices can create ripple effects
that transform your life and the lives of those around you.
that transform your life and the lives of the people around you.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
We hope it's inspired you to embrace the courage to be yourself,
I hope it has
to live a life true to your values,
life true to your values,
and to find that joy that comes from connecting with others in a meaningful way.
and to find that joy that comes from connecting with others in a meaningful way.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
Keep diving deep.